Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. So some interesting turn of events here as the U.S. instituted this blockade, right? In the right there in the same region, right, of the Strait of Hormuz. And so, now what they're doing is trying to cut off, as it would seem, the leverage that Iran had, because Iran had control over the strait. And so they could then, decide to say, okay, well, we'll use that as leverage. We'll make sure we block it off, and nobody that we don't want to come through will be able to transit. And so the U.S. says, okay, well, we're going to set up a blockade right there. So even if you did let somebody go through, now they got to go through us, right? And they did send warships and everything in there to say that now we control this blocking over here. And now, as I'll go into the next headline here, you're starting to see what is appearing to be what the U.S. gains from doing something like that. So let's read this here. It says, U.S. says no ships made it past blockade as Iran mulls Hormuz shipping pause to preserve talks, which Trump says could happen in 2 days. So basically, after their first attempt at the peace talks, they weren't able to come to a deal, right? The U.S., I think they mentioned one of the main deal breakers was the nuclear enrichment program that they wanted Iran to get rid of. Iran said, no, we ain't doing that. But now they're saying, Iran is basically saying that they're willing to not challenge this blockade in order to preserve the ability, right, to still negotiate something, right? And so, as we'll see in the summary over here, they're now willing to pause that nuclear program for a certain period of time. The U.S. and Israel don't seem to be on board with that, but we'll see how that goes. So from CENTCOM here, it says, during the last 24 hours, no ships made it past the U.S. blockade, and 6 merchant vessels complied with direction from U.S. forces to turn around to re-enter an Iranian port on the Gulf of Oman, it said. Now, who else is also affected by this is China, because they were also, had a deal with Iran, and they were able to get their tankers and certain resources through that strait. But now they can't even do that because the U.S. is saying no. Diplomacy is not yet dead. As Bloomberg reports, Iran is mulling a short-term pause to shipments through Hormuz Strait. Trump tells NYP talks could happen again in 2 days in Pakistan. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if during these next round of talks, the U.S. and Israel keep trying to move the goalpost more and more and more and more and more. Okay, either to one, continue this war and basically get it to a point where everything they said they would do concerning Iran in terms of completely just disarming them, right? No leverage, no nothing, making them basically like a Gulf state in the region, so Israel can go ahead and continue on with their Greater Israel project with no problems at hand. So either they keep on pressing and pressing and pressing, or they just keep moving the goalpost because they're not, trying to agree to something. Now, they might come out in talks in 2 days and say, yeah, see, Iran agreed to do this, that, and the third. And so all is sweet. It looks like we're going to go ahead and do that, and the third. Slakia, that's all nice and dandy until it's not. Because remember, in 2nd Ezra 15, in the vision that Ezra saw, he mentioned concerning the Iranians, which in 2nd Ezra 15, they're mentioned as the Carmanians. He mentioned them raging in wrath, right, and coming to join battle. So right now, as things look like it's they're trying to cool it down, something else is going to happen that is going to re-trigger and really exacerbate the already built up frustration and anger of those Arab countries over there. That includes Iran, and also, well, the Iranians are not Arabs, but the Iranians are going to be pissed off, and so are the other countries in that region. Okay, so this right here is really just a prelude to the triggering point, which we'll see. So, continuing here, mediators are scrambling to put together another round of U.S.-Iran talks in the coming days. Iran is reportedly offering a 5-year moratorium on nuclear program, while U.S. demands 20. Saudis are among those calling for an end to the U.S. blockade of the Hormuz Strait, amid fears the Houthis could shut down Bab al-Mandeb Strait. Chinese ships testing America's Hormuz blockade appears to U-turn, and they're not going to be very happy about that. North Korea is said to be negotiating tolls, safe passage with Tehran, and Hezbollah's Secretary General Naim Qassem rejects upcoming talks between the Lebanese government and Israel, which are set for 11 a.m. in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. Yeah, they're just not even having it. All right, they're like, yeah, ain't no way we're going to trust these people here. And you just look at their track record. Why would you? And whatever's going to happen, right, in the future, you can sort of see why it'll piss off a lot of people, and even the Iranians themselves, because like I've mentioned before, I'm pretty sure it's not everybody that's on board with this. You know, there definitely got to be members in that IRGC that are not on board with this, that actually don't want, because they, in their minds, they're like, you can't trust these people, you can't try to make a deal with them. So you go ahead and try again and get fooled a third time. At that point, you know, what more is there, right? Filler up record armada of tankers bound for U.S. Gulf to load oil. So this is the interesting part here, as now, as this article goes into, these oil-starved countries are now seeking to get it from the U.S. That's rerouting traffic to now, and business to now get oil from the U.S. since the strait has been pretty much blockaded now, and Iran isn't going to contest it right now. So it's looking like good numbers for the U.S. oil exports. Because remember, U.S. also, and just recently they went and took over Venezuela's oil. So you're starting to see, you know, as time goes on, the picture becomes clearer and clearer. Because think of it like solving a puzzle. And in order to solve a puzzle, you need, you know, pieces. But the pieces that of prophecy are time. So as time moves on, you get more pieces. And the more pieces you get, the more of the puzzle you can solve, and then the clearer you can you see the picture, right? So, you know, say 5 years ago, we didn't have enough pieces as we do now, which make it even more clear the vision that was seen by the prophets of old and what eventually led up to that. So it says here, an unusually large number of crude oil tankers on the open seas has the American Gulf Coast as a destination, as the ships are redirected to load cargoes bound for markets around the world already experiencing shortages. And this, you know, should this be a thing, this is going to completely, it's going to greatly deleverage Iran's, you know, hold on that strait. Which right now, it's kind of like they don't even have a hold on it, because U.S. is doing what they're doing. As Alton Wallace writes at the Center Square, second-term Republican President Donald Trump said Saturday on social media that massive numbers of completely empty oil tankers are en route to the United States to purchase American energy. Foreign buyers are voting with their ships. American energy means stability, strength, and freedom from Middle East blackmail, the president posted on Monday. Now, what's interesting is, I remember I watched a video a couple of days ago. It was by the Elder Adama. I believe he's in Boston, GMS Boston. And he was doing he did a video, right? He was going into it. He was mentioning how, you know, one possible way that things could play out, right, based on how things are going. And he was emphasizing how Trump is a businessman, right? And so a lot of these things that he does, he's looking at it from a business standpoint, from a deal. How can this benefit him or them, the U.S. in the end of things? And he did mention the basically the rerouting of traffic, right, to cause a dependency, no more on Iran, no more really on the Strait, but more on the U.S. Because now that gives them that sort of pushes them back up, to this high position again, because now you become like we just read here, a source, a provider at a point where these nations are basically in dire need of oil or energy, right? So let's read a little bit more here. It says, shipping data posted by maritime intelligence company Windward shows 171 crude tankers are bound for the U.S. Gulf to load crude oil cargoes, which compared with about 110 in a typical month. So that's a pretty high jump. The surging vessel traffic comes as nations throughout Europe and Asia grapple to secure energy supplies and regional prices skyrocket. Germany is providing emergency fuel relief to its citizens, while officials in the Philippines recently declared a national energy emergency as the world looks increasingly to the U.S. to replenish war-starved oil and gas markets. Isn't that interesting? So, like, as we're here, you'll see gas prices go up because they are going up. But in certain other parts of the world, they're past that point. They're in emergency like level. They're not in just like, damn, gas went up, like some more, and now it's like in the $4 or some places $3.95 and so on. No, they're past that. They're in the emergency points, like we're just reading here about even the Philippines. Hundreds of supertankers, the kind that carry 2 million barrels each, are currently racing toward the U.S. Gulf Coast from every direction: Atlantic, Indian Ocean, around Africa, the scenic route, and we were heading to Saudi Arabia, but never mind. We were heading to Saudi Arabia, but never mind route. Jesus Enrique Rosas noted this weekend, basically saying there's a rerouting now of super tankers from going to that region where the Gulf states are at to now heading towards the U.S. to load up and stock up on oil. Oil markets research firm Kepler estimates U.S. crude oil expects exports in April will reach 5.2 million barrels per day, up about 1/3 from 3.9 million barrels a day in March. So now their export numbers are going to go up if more and more people are trying to buy. North Carolina-based, I think it's pronounced Kepler, analyst Matt Smith described the great volume of incoming ships as an armada of tankers heading this way. So you start to see here how, once again, all these things are starting to, piece in one with another. Now, as time goes on, we will get more and more pieces that make the vision clearer and clearer and clearer, as to the more day-by-day events, right? The more secular events that intertwine to bring about these prophecies that we read of in the scriptures. Now, there's another part in here. I want to jump to that. Let's see. Yeah, so it's in quotes here, the more Iran leans on Hormuz, the faster global energy flows reroute around it. Over time, that erodes Tehran's leverage and cuts into its long-term power. See that? Now, would the U.S. keep a blockade there to for a period of time in order to normalize the rerouting now to the U.S. for energy? Who knows? Right? Who knows? But we'll see. Okay, we will see. Let's see what we have here. Looking at the bigger picture, Rosas also wrote, Iran played its biggest card, and the main result is that the United States became the world's emergency gas station, and China's cheap energy subsidy evaporated. The spice oil must flow, but Trump rewrote the rule book about where it flows from. And that's the thing about, these times, right? War times and times of prophecy. Looking at how war plays out, it's very fluid. Okay, things, a lot of different events transpire, which push on to the next, which pushes on to the next, which pushes on to the next, and then, brings about a new turn of events here, right? So that's why the scriptures tell us to watch, right? The Lord told us to watch and to, basically watch how he orchestrates this, because it's the Heavenly Father that's orchestrating all this at the end of the day. From their closed door meetings and plans to the things they come and say to the public, to the reaction of different nations, different countries, prime ministers, presidents, the Lord is controlling all of that. Okay. So this is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 4, verse 37. By measure hath he measured the times. Salaki, actually, it's not this that I'm looking for. I'm looking for 2nd Ezra. There you go. 9 and 1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. And when thou seest part of the signs pass which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. So the key part here is measuring the time diligently in itself. And that's the point of keeping up with these articles, keeping up with current events, because we are living in these times. So you have to be on watch. You have to, pay attention to what's going on around the world, what's going on in the country that you're in, what's going on in the financial sector, right, which is related ultimately to the MOTB, right? So all these things are all happening, and it's our job to watch and measure, right? Because we have the scriptures, we have what to measure it by, but you have to be diligent in watching, lest that day come upon you unawares. Okay, so once again, interesting turn of events here. We'll see what happens at this point, the coming days is what we got to say, because things are moving so quickly. And when they bring out that MOTB, like the apostles have always been saying, it's going to move even quicker. All right. So we're at the end. All right. We're the last few prophecies. We're at the end of this kingdom, which is the last heathen empire before our rule. And so definitely exciting times, but it's going to get very tumultuous before things calm down. So now is definitely the time to stay in the spirit, stay praying, and stay in the right mindset. Don't do anything that's going to be jeopardizing, your good estate with the Lord or your salvation. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.